Next question is, I'm needing some tips on running down steep, rocky trails. I'm new to trail running and freak out about slipping down them. Do you have any trail shoe recommendation, or is it more about technique? I think it's a really good question. I think that I struggled with downhill running for a long time. Shoes wise, I can show you my shoes. I don't have them right here. I hardly have any grip. So with shoes, I don't think you need too much grip. Realistically, the trails in Perth and Australia are not technical at all. And even if there is a small technical part in the trail that you run, 80 or 90% of it is not technical, so it's not worth having shoes with like really heavy grip and heavy logs for the sake of 200 meters of technical running. So that's probably one thing about shoes. We can get deeper into shoes maybe in a later question, but about technique, I think there's two things here. So with trail running in general, you want to make sure that your feet are strong. I'm going to try and get some videos out talking a little bit more about foot strength, because we've been wearing shoes for so many years. If you think about it, you're always wearing shoes at work, when you run and stuff like that. Our feet don't react the same way as what if you would have not been wearing shoes. So getting your feet stronger and reacting better to different terrain and kind of how steep it is really, really important. The other kind of stuff that I did to improve my downhill running is actually look 1.5 meters forward rather than looking down. So if you think about it, there's a lot of people that kind of run when it's technical, steep downhill, they look pretty much straight at their feet and they get surprised by a rock or a step or some uneven ground. If you look 1.5 meters in front or 1 meter in front, you would have seen that rock here when you were back here, and then when you're here, you're seeing that kind of rock. So you don't need to look straight down, rather kind of look forward. So give that a try when you're training. I think that will make a massive difference. One of the main things to improve your downhill running is actually going to a section that you feel uncomfortable and repeating it a few times and analyzing it as well. You want to make sure that you don't just kind of go and do it because somebody told me to do it, but you kind of understand, that felt good, let me do that again, maybe I try something else, let me try, how does that feel, do I go faster, am I safer? Being scared about falling down and slipping, obviously the question comes down, have you fallen before, have you slipped before? Usually, from my experience, I'm not sure about you, most people tell me no, then I go, let's not worry about it till that happens. We want to make sure that we bring our center of gravity a bit lower to the ground. Your cadence is high. You're landing on the front of your foot, so you're not searching for a big space for your whole foot to land. You're rather searching for more even spots where only your toes land, so you're a lot softer. Also, I use kind of my arms when I run downhill to balance myself. So a lot of people look straight down, their arms are tucked in, so it's really kind of hard to maneuver. When I'm running down, I have my arms kind of all over the place to balance myself. I'm searching for the most even spots to land, the safest spots to land, and I make sure that I look forward and I don't look down. So give those things a try. Make sure you go out there. You can, before you get good at technical downhill running, you want to make sure you're very good at road downhill running. So I spend a lot of time doing downhill repeats on a road before I felt comfortable doing it on the trails. Making sure you don't overstride, because when you overstride on a downhill, you're putting a lot more impact on your quads. So making sure you land under your body. So you can practice those things going downhill on a road and then start practicing them on trail. It does take time. That's probably a skill where a lot, like uphill running, it's less of a skill. It's more like how strong your cardio is, how strong your lungs are. Downhill is actually a skill. So that's something you do need to kind of spend a lot of time on developing and working on and improving. When I go start doing downhill repeats on the road, you want to make sure it's kind of very short, very controlled, not too fast, building up to it. So don't go out tomorrow and kind of start doing 5 sets of 2 minutes non-stop downhill running, which is pretty hard in Perth anyway, but not going too hard, so more control, kind of doing a couple of sets, a week later revisiting that session. And if you start doing that session every week, before you know it, your skills are improved, you're more comfortable, you're more confident, and you're less scared, then and you will get there. I think that's something I struggled with in the beginning, but I put a lot of effort into it, and now it's at a good level. It can always be improved, and I'm still working at it. I'm still doing downhill repeat sets on the road, even though, you know, I feel pretty comfortable on the trails. It's a skill that you want to keep on working on as you kind of progress through. Next question is, what is your pre-race routine regarding nutrition, stretching, or rolling that works for you? Usually for me, I would wake up 3 hours before the race, and I would have some food straight when I wake up. So I need 3 hours for that food to digest. When I was doing triathlons last year, you know, because you start with the swim and the bike, I felt like I could get away with like eating 2 hours before, or even an hour and a half. But with running, you know, obviously I'm sure a lot of you have experienced, you know, running with a full stomach. It's not that fun. It kind of affects your cardio. You feel heavy. It takes you a little while to kind of get into it. So if it is an important race, I would make sure that you have 3 hours before, and you want to have something kind of light. You know, for me, it was years of eating like wholemeal bread, organic peanut butter, and a banana slice on top of it, with a little bit of cinnamon powder on top. You know, that kind of worked for me for many years, so I kind of stayed with that. Then I had one bad race, and I kind of decided to give something else a try. You know, and it's been oats lately, so a little bit of oats, and I would kind of have maybe two spoonfuls of peanut butter in there, just to get a little bit of fat in there. But yeah, rolled oats has been working for me for probably the last few months, with peanut butter. I would make sure that I get to the race. Oh, sorry, about drinking as well. So the eating I'll do 3 hours before, then I'll have a shower. I might pack all my stuff and stuff like that. And with drinking, I want to make sure that, you know, I'm drinking a little bit in the first 2 hours. So I got 3 hours till the race. The first 2 hours of those 3 hours, I'm going to be drinking a little bit of electrolytes, maybe a sports drink. I've experimented with Red Bulls and stuff like that, even though they're super unhealthy. You know, if it's a shorter race, I might look for a bit of caffeine before. So if it's a shorter race, I'll probably have a Red Bull. And I'll try and have that in those kind of 2 hours, quite a lot of liquid. And then the last hour before the race starts, I would just kind of have little mouthfuls, so I'm not drinking too much. I don't want to get to the point where I'm starting the race super heavy, and needing to go to the bathroom as well. So for me, that kind of probably a main thing is making sure that I'm drinking, I'm hydrated, but then 1 hour before the race, you know, I'm only having little mouthfuls to make sure that, you know, obviously as you get excited before the race, your mouth could be a little bit dry. So I'm getting kind of my mouth full, sips of water, maybe a little bit of electrolytes, as I said, maybe a Red Bull, but I'll make sure that most of my drinking happened in the first 2 hours of kind of waking up, 2 hours to the race. Then I'll make sure that I get to the race at least an hour before. Obviously, you know, if it's a really important race, I'll make sure I'm a bit more than an hour. If it's a small local park run, you know, you don't have to be there an hour before, and you might not do the same things. It all depends how important the race is. If the race is super important, I'll make sure that I'm an hour before. I'm at the race site. I know where it starts. I know, you know, where I'm going to leave my bag. So I don't want to be stressed out, you know, 20 minutes before the start, half an hour before the start, not knowing where the start line is. So I'll find out those things probably an hour before. Then I'll do an easy warm up. Usually for me, it's like kind of like 100-meter strides of like really easy running. So like really slow, probably 8-minute, 9-minute pace, almost kind of like walking pace, but just staying on my toes. So I want to kind of get this kind of lightness in my feel as I warm up. I might do a couple of little drills, like, you know, kind of arm swings, you know, high knees kind of stuff. Very, like nothing that's going to make me tired, but just opening up the joints a little bit, making sure that I'm kind of ready to go for the race. But otherwise, I might do a couple of basic stretches, like a little bit of calf, hamstring, but I don't do too much. You know, I do 15 minutes of yoga every day, so I feel like I'm quite flexible and kind of loose most of the time. So I don't feel, and I don't really stretch before I go running. Generally, I do stretch like with the yoga sessions that I do, So I don't have this kind of like I have to do 15 minutes or 10 minutes of stretching before every single run. And even if you don't kind of do it on regular basis, you don't want to be doing it on a race. It's like a lot of people in kind of longer distance running, you know, they would say, oh, I have a training shoe and a racing shoe. Personally, that doesn't really work for me. You know, I kind of, you know, I'm gonna train with the same shoe I'm gonna race. You know, I don't want to be having two different kind of ways of landing and pushing off with different shoes. So I don't, you know, if I don't usually stretch, I won't stretch before a race. You know, I might do a few seconds on my cars because, you know, just kind of open them up, but I'm not gonna do anything extra in the morning of a race that I don't do on every single other run that I do during the week, if that makes sense. So I'll get to the point where I'm doing the same things for a race as I would for an easy run. Obviously with the food, you know, I'm not gonna get a 3-hour gap for a morning training run. It might only be an hour or 45 minutes or half an hour at times, but I'm sure that you would have experienced kind of eating and then running straight away. Many people will feel a little bit heavy. So for me, the 3 hours worked. For you, it might be 2 hours. I would definitely play around, so I'll kind of try different tactics, different amount of times with the food, whatever works best for you. One thing is probably sleep. You know, a lot of people ask me, is it important to sleep well, or how many hours should I sleep the night before the race? It doesn't really, it's not really important what happens the night before the race. What is important is the week leading up to the race. So we're most likely not going to have the best night's sleep before a race. You have to wake up super early, but I'll make sure that week leading up to the race, I'm sleeping an extra, you know, half an hour, an extra hour every single night. So I'm kind of banking in those hours. So then if the night of the race I'm not sleeping well, no big deal, you know what, because I did an extra 5 hours of sleeps during this week already. So that's probably a big thing for me, is actually that sleep leading up to the race. And then last one, do you mind sharing if you have any of your max parameters, example VO2 max, velocity at peak, best 400 meters, best 500 meters, best deadlifts, back squat or similar. Fun question. Favorite best active recovery. That's a good one. To be honest, no idea what my VO2 max is. I really think it's pointless, to be honest, for people at our level. It's probably very important if you're an Olympic 5K runner, 10K runner, marathon runner, but I don't even, to be honest, I don't consider myself as a professional runner. I'm not. Obviously I have a full-time job, so I don't think it's important for me. I think that, you know, it's just extra data that I don't want to be thinking about. So I don't know my VO2 max. I've never raced the 400 meters. Obviously, you know, I kind of started with a marathon, so I didn't kind of grow up through going with shorter distances. A 5K PB is 15:45, somewhere around there. So nothing too fast. I don't consider myself as a fast runner. I consider myself as an ultra runner. Deadlift probably about the bar, so 20 kilograms. Back squat probably around 20 kilograms as well. I don't do too much kind of heavy lifting. You know, personally for me, as I said, like, the thing is, when something works for you really well for kind of 6 years, you don't really make too many changes. So the kind of daily yoga 15 minutes has been working well for me. A lot of balance work, stability work, body work, strength work has been working for me. So obviously I've read a lot about kind of, you know, lifting a lot heavier and the benefits of that, and I'm sure there are. But when something works for you so well for so many years, I haven't seen the point to change that. Saying that, maybe if I have a couple of bad races, or maybe I get injured or something like that, I will probably look into other ways to kind of improve my strength or whatever I need to change, and I might look into those things. But yeah, I wouldn't be able to lift too heavily. You know, upper body strength and body strength, even like, you know, kind of the leg press in the gym. Literally, if I went right now and I went as hard as I could, it's probably going to be about 40 kilograms. Like, it's not much. Even though my legs look strong, I just don't do those things, so it's not very high at all. Best active recovery, I think that's a massive one. That's probably the most important one. Probably one of the best questions, actually. I think that active recovery is the way to go. I think that's been one of the key things for me. Not getting any injuries in 6 years since I started running is actually moving. Blood flow is active recovery. I've done runs with some good runners, and we would do a hard 20k run in the morning. Some from Perth, I won't name any names, and he's like, "Oh, I can't wait to just chill for the rest of the day and watch TV on a Sunday morning." And in my head, I'm thinking, I'll probably do half an hour of yoga, probably 10-15 minutes foam rolling. I'll probably do another walk, maybe another 5k run in the afternoon. So for me, active recovery is the main thing. Basic yoga for me works well. I've done Bikram yoga classes for years. Now it's my own routine for about 15 minutes every day. Easy walking, cycling. Cycling is the best. Like low impact cycling is probably the best recovery that everybody should be doing. If you have a day off, doing half an hour of cycling is better than doing nothing. That's the way I see it. For me, it's been training 7 days a week. Some days might be 45 minutes on the bike at low impact at like 80 watts, which is hardly nothing. My heart rate stays at 90, so it's hardly moving, but it's getting that blood flow. Even if it's just a walk, you did a big race in the morning, make sure you do a half an hour walk before dinner at that night. Make sure that you move. Light movements with low effort is probably the best way to recover, and that's something that I would encourage everybody to do it and kind of experiment for themselves. You might feel a bit different, kind of feeling like you're doing more and you're not resting enough. If you're sleeping 6 or 7, 8 hours a night, you have enough rest, so I wouldn't worry about that. You shouldn't be resting too much during the day. It is about making sure that you're not going too hard. So if I do a hard 20k in the morning, I'm not going to do a hard 5k at night, because that doesn't make sense, because I'm over pushing my body, over stretching it, doing a little bit too much. So it will have to be 6-minute pace 5k kind of style, because I'll feel better doing that than doing nothing and sitting on the couch, personally for me, and I would encourage active recovery. Thanks a lot for all the questions. Hopefully with the next round I get a little bit more confident in front of the camera, and kind of it's been a while since I've been in front of the camera, so a lot of kind of and stuff like that hopefully will kind of clean itself up in the next few videos. I do kind of encourage you, if you have any other questions, you can always send me a message. I do my best to reply to them. One thing that probably led me to do this is when I started running back in 2012. I read Ultra Marathon Man, and I sent Dean Karnazes an email, and the fact that he replied to me meant the world to me, and it motivated me, and I was, since then, every time I get a question, I do my best to kind of answer it. It's not straight away, it's the next day, 2 days later, but I do my best to answer it. This way, hopefully, I could get a little bit deeper into answering questions, rather than kind of, a few sentences that I probably won't put together, or I'll have some spelling mistakes, and then they won't make any sense. You probably won't take me as serious. You won't take me as seriously. So, I'm looking forward to doing this next month. Hopefully we can get some more good questions. In the meantime, if you have any other questions, you can always send me a message on Facebook, Instagram, whatever, email. Always happy to help, and hopefully I'll see a lot more of you guys in upcoming events as well.